I'm Anna Ivanishvili, Georgian journalist. I was a kid back then, and I remember even in 2010, there were legends about this very kind Georgian billionaire. He's spending all this money, not wanting anything back. Then he came into the power, and then he, I don't know, undermined Georgian democratic institutions.
Bidzina Ivanishvili's rags to riches to brutal repression story begins in western Georgia in the 1950s. He grew up in poverty, a fact he has used throughout his political life. Having attended university in the capital Tbilisi, he moved to Moscow in the early 1980s to continue his education. The exact sources of Ivanishvili's estimated $7 billion fortune are unclear. We know he started selling computers, then phones. With the collapse of the Soviet Union, he reportedly diversified into metals, gas, military hardware, using his newfound wealth to support the political campaigns of Boris Yeltsin and Alexander Lebed. Perhaps more relevant than the cut-price privatized businesses that he bought en masse, though, are the qualities he would have needed to succeed in business in Russia in the lawless 90s.
Among the Russian oligarchs, his nickname is Anaconda, a snake. This snake which is putting on the neck and...
Georgy Butikashvili, an expert on Russian hybrid warfare, is miming a snake choking him.
He is a snake. He very strategic.
Zaza Abashidze is editor-in-chief of Realpolitika.
Some Georgians really believe that Ivanishvili is the naive person, billionaire who is a bit, less educated, who's got some ambition and nothing more. No, he's super dangerous. He really knows. He saw how the dictatorship was made in Russia. He was a part of the system. He was very active during the Eltsin time. He was supporting one of the political group. So he knows very well what he is doing, what he is copying, what he wants to do here.
What's happening in Georgia? I'm Stephen Matthews, a writer and filmmaker based in the UK. I've been watching Georgia slide into authoritarianism for the past 2 years. I wanted to understand more, so I asked a range of Georgians with different experiences of the regime to explain how we got here and what the international community, including people like me and you, can do. Georgia achieved independence from the Soviet Union in April 1991. In 2003, there were mass protests when the government of Eduard Shevardnadze tried to cling on to power following fraudulent elections. Following an intervention from the Georgian Supreme Court, new elections were called, and in 2004, the United National Movement, led by Mikhail Saakashvili, was elected with an overwhelming majority. Nino Delidze is an expert on democratic development. She was, until recently, executive director of ISFED, an NGO that is Georgia's largest independent election observer.
It was quite successful times for Georgia, and we were kind of example how post-Soviet country can become a freedom fighter and front runner of the democracy. But as you may know, whenever one power has all resources, and they are kind of capturing all state institutions. That happened to the United National Movement on the second half of their governing time, and they started violating of human rights.
Anna Ivanishvili.
In 2007, there was this scandal about Sandro Gergliani. High officials have allegedly killed this guy, and United National Movement have banned the media's access to the courtrooms. One of the main problems was this judiciary system. The regular Georgian citizen did not have a feeling that they could go to the court and find some justice there.
Nino Delidze.
People were kind of tired of this situation, and they wanted new power, which would be more democratic, which might be more multi-party, so not to have one-party majority in the country, because when you have one-party majority, all the state institutions are captured, that you cannot find justice, etc., etc.
Unfortunately, opportunities can attract opportunists. In late 2011, Ivanishvili launched his Georgian Dream movement. Over the next few months, he formed a broad coalition under the GD banner to oppose the UNM at the 2012 parliamentary elections. I'm speaking to the Georgian academic, Alexander Kaftaradze. Before he came to power, what was known of Ivanishvili in Georgia? What was his kind of reputation, and how did he establish a kind of political presence, really?
That's an interesting question because most of the people, really, most of the Georgians didn't know much about this man before 2011. Many Georgians haven't even seen him, his picture, his image, or his interviews, nothing. He was very secretive. Before approximately 2007, he was also financing UNM. He was paying some of the salaries against some of the bonuses. He was paying for, I think, some of the rumors of some of the cars for the police, new cars for the police, and so on and so on. So he was financing the government as well, the governing party. There were rumors as well, but also some facts that he was helping out, as he, I think, called it, many of the artists, for example, actors, painters, others. He was paying them almost like a monthly salary because their salary was so minimal, really, and they could hardly live on that. So he was doing that. Nobody really thought much of it before 2011, I want to say, because most of the people would say that, oh, he's, such a kind man, kind of donating all this money to different kind of people. And then in 2011 and 12, that came in handy because many of these famous kind of faces, these artists and so on, they openly declared their support for him when he entered politics.
How did he manage to distance himself from UNM?
When he entered politics already, he was being asked about this, and he said, well, I financed them during the first years, but after a particular sort of crackdown on a major kind of demonstration on the 7th of November in 2007, he said that was one of the kind of moments when he decided to distance himself from UNM. At least that's what he said back in 2011, and he kept repeating it afterwards as well. But we really don't remember a major statement from him in 2007.
I remember I was on the polling station and I was still thinking that UNM would win because I had seen previous elections and manipulations that time. But suddenly the people saw that there is stronger opposition here. There is chance that we can choose new government. So that was mainly that people believed the changes may happen through elections. Saakashvili admitted he's losing elections, which was very important in Georgia's type of country, because before that we had only revolution. So peaceful transform of the power was very important for us, and it was another kind of step towards democratic development.
In the 2012 parliamentary elections, the Georgian Dream coalition won 53% of the vote, with the UNM on 40%. Ivanishvili had committed to selling his Russian business interests before taking power, but a 2022 investigation by Transparency International Georgia confirmed that he retained his influence of a vast network of companies via family members and offshore structures. Through this web of influence, he has also retained links with senior politicians in the Russian Federation. Levan Natrashvili is an election specialist and the current executive director of ISFED, the Election Observer.
His coalition was very pro-Western, I would say, of course. There were some minor parties who were so-called pro-Russian parties, but, the mainstream parties, of course, none of them actually were pro-Russian, and it was absolutely unpopular, of course, to have pro-Russian foreign policy orientation at that time. It was absolutely unimaginable for Georgian politics, of course. This coalition was social democratic. From today's perspective, it's a bit weird because today the Georgian Dream is a right-wing party, kind of nationalistic party, but at that time it was social democratic.
The only thing which was visible by that time and which was frustrating was not making steps towards independent judiciary, because whenever he came, restoration of justice was one of the main things he was campaigning on during elections, and everybody was expecting that he would change the judges and everybody who was in judiciary system during Saakashvili's time and who were blamed for all these human rights violations. But unfortunately, no. Suddenly, we are seeing that all guys who are in judiciary and had done all these bad things moved to Bidzina Ivanishvili and started to serve now to this government. For us, for example, basis of democracy is judiciary. So when you are seeing that he wants judiciary to be under him, you already understand that it's not democratic development.
At what point did people begin to fear that Georgian Dream was going in another direction? What was the first kind of sign you remember of that?
I think there were signs here and there, but small signs. One of the first ones for some people was that his grand coalition, well, I wouldn't call it collapsed in a sense because he was intentional, I think. He distanced himself slowly and eventually over the years from more of a kind of a liberal wing, if we want to call it that, of his coalition. So some of these people started leaving the coalition, or they were forced to, I suppose.
Levan Natrashvili.
He basically tried to consolidate power in his own party, Georgian Dream, and he basically got rid of other political parties in the coalition. This was the first sign, I guess, which could somehow point to potential kind of developments in the future. But still, at that time, they had very good relations with the West. We got visa regime with the European Union, continued negotiations with the European Union about further advancement. Then we got the association agreement with the European Union and deep and comprehensive free trade agreement. So at that time, still, of course, Georgian Dream was considered as pro-democracy, pro-Western.
15 years on from the phase of quiet philanthropy that Anna Ivanishvili remembered from her childhood, the once generous billionaire is waging a hybrid war of unremitting violence against his own people. So what happened?
They were pro-European nominally.
Yes, they are really on a journey, but to be honest, they don't have any clear platform. Today they are, the socialists. Tomorrow they will be libertarians. And day after tomorrow they could be centrists. It does not matter for them. Ivanishvili does not have any ideology. What matters for him is not the emotions, not the practical things. So for him to have a country is the huge asset and he's using it. And we can see it, I think he needs power for a couple of reasons. First of all, he really wants to influence the whole country, and when you have the country, in your pocket, it's really huge asset. You can see it on every table. You are the partner or adversary, but still, everyone is trying to talk with you. Before Ivanishvili, there was another oligarch from Russia, the Georgian one, the Badri Patarkatsishvili, who was trying to get in power here during the Saakashvili's time, but he was defeated. And what was he trying also to get the country, to have the country in his pocket and to use it? He was the partner of Berezovsky. There could be some potential risk for him, but still he can use this banking system, the security services. He can have as many mansions as he wants. this country is the safe haven for him.
In 2024, Bidzina Ivanishvili was sanctioned by the US and several European Union countries for undermining Georgian democracy and advancing the interests of the Russian Federation. Context is important, but the situation now in Georgia is urgent. In episode 3, we'll return to the present day and hear from the journalist Irma Dimitradze about her friend and boss, Bidzina Ivanishvili. Bidzina is the co-founder of the independent news platforms NetGazeti and Batu Malebi, who has been held by the Georgian Dream on trumped-up charges for over 6 months. This is not a traditional podcast. It's an attempt to draw international attention to the situation in Georgia and to provide a platform for the Georgians struggling against the authoritarian regime there. Please follow What's Happening in Georgia on social media and share this podcast with anyone you think would be interested.